Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears.
timing of everything. Good morning. Welcome to Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation and Summit here on the ancestral lands of the Lenni Lenape. Welcome to a community of imperfect people seeking to heal the world as we feed our spirits together. If you're joining us online, please take a moment to say hello in the chat. My name is Jermaine Kripe. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a plus-size African-American woman with blue and graying locks, wearing a black dress and blue glasses. So many things are coming up right now, and we'd love to have you to be a part of them all. So if you're new to our community, please get to know more about Beacon by coming to our Connecting at Beacon today at 12:15 in our library on the second floor. You'll be joining Chris Schomburg and our own Reverend Dr. Robin Tanner to learn a little bit more about what being a beacon is all about and to ask questions. So please come and stop by. And also at 1 o'clock, our community group facilitators will be meeting in Fellowship Hall. Don't forget that. You're in for a treat this morning. We'd like to welcome our special musicians, Miss Rosina Hill-Jackson, our vocalist, and also Vicki Carter, the amazing pianist. Woo! Thank you both for being here. I'm looking forward to enjoying your offerings of music before I have to sneak out with the kids. This morning's worship highlights one half of our denomination's name and legacy, Universalism, the belief that all are beloved and welcome and worthy of salvation. Reverend Joan Javier Duval, our minister in Montpelier, Vermont, states the following: whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week or gleeful laughter has spilled from your lips, whether you're feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, whether you have untold stories buried deep inside or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of your comfort, whether you've made promises, broken promises, or are renewing your promises, whatever is on your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment, you are beloved and you are welcome here. So take a deep breath, set aside everything that you're carrying. In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, covenant and connection, let us worship together. Welcome to Beacon.
Good morning. My name is Wim. I'm your worship associate today. I'm like tall and white with gray and curly hair on, and a sort of blue and white striped shirt. We now light our chalice. This day, we celebrate the spiritual wisdom of universalism, of the strength and courage to declare love can be trusted, believed as source and return, and lived in accordance by all humans. It is an aspiration, a faithful fuel, a spark to animate a fate of inclusion. For this, we kindle our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism.
Good morning. And if you will stand, if you are willing and able, and we have hymn 118 in our blue hymnals, This Little Light of Mine. This little light shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up my world, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine, 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 let it
The chalice is lit.
House lit. It's Wonderbox Day! Who would like to come and open up our Wonderbox? Julia, come on up here.
This is who gets to raise it fastest.
Yeah, this is got to be on your things. Come on up. Since I already snuck out your name, tell them your full name and what grade you're in.
My name's Julia Sonati, and I'm in second grade.
Awesome. Why don't you open our box? What is that?
Boat.
It's a boat. Thank you very much. Let's give Julia a big old hand. This is an interesting thing to find in a Wonderbox, a sailboat. I was wondering, they don't make ships like this nowadays anymore, do they?
They do not, with so many sails and all that, although sailing is an Olympic sport these days, but I don't think a ship like that would have been used as an Olympic sport.
Yeah, I don't think they were. They were probably traveling, right?
Yes, I think so. They were traveling very far. Jermaine, most ships have names. It's usually written on the front. This one doesn't seem to have it written, but do you have an idea of what the ship might have been called?
This ship I would call the Hand in Hand.
And do you have an idea of where it might have sailed from?
England. It sailed from England a long time ago, 250 years. Okay, math heads, what year would that be? 1773. Close. Yes, that's a 70.
Exactly. It was 1770, and on the ship, the Hand in Hand, was a Universalist preacher named John Murray.
What was he like, Reverend John Murray?
John Murray lived at a time when Christianity was very harsh in Europe. People were taught that they were bad from the start, and children were even hit if they didn't get it all right in religious school and they couldn't remember all the details.
Ooh, imagine us doing that for the 8th principles. That sounds awful. How did he end up becoming a Universalist, though?
Well, he and his wife Eliza visited nearly every church in London because they were looking for a message that would sit well with them. It was there that they heard a Universalist preacher named James Relly, and they converted to Universalism. John Murray became a lay preacher, but it came at a cost.
Let me guess. His family begged him to go back to their old church.
I think they tried to make him go back to his old church. He lost his business. His wife Eliza and his son fell sick. The medical bills piled up. Eliza and his young son eventually died. And John was sent to debtor's prison. That's a place you have to go if you owe a lot of money. He was eventually bailed out by Eliza's brother, who begged him to go to the New World, what we now call the United States of America, so he wouldn't have to go back to prison.
So off they sailed, and probably like a month later, the ship was headed for New York City, but it accidentally got rerouted to Philly, and then a bunch of people got off the ship, and then they tried sailing again and ended up stuck on a sandbar here in New Jersey.
And they were rapidly running out of supplies of fresh water and food, and someone needed to go ashore for help to replenish the food and water that they needed, right? We say that John Murray was a brave soul who volunteered, right? This is the miracle, if Unitarian Universalists believe in miracles, that John Murray volunteered to go off the ship.
Yeah, but since he was escaping prison, he was probably voluntold to get off the ship.
And that too in a strange place, right? Either way, we know that getting off the ship was risky business, right? The ship is stuck, and you have high winds, choppy waters, and you're trying to make it to shore. That is rough.
Did John Murray even know how to swim?
See, that's one of the things that we don't know and that we can wonder about. But I'm sure that whether he volunteered or voluntold, it was a brave thing to do, because you had to risk going into waters that were like, we should be going the other way.
I guess that's right. I mean, it must have been a relief to be greeted on the shore by Thomas Potter, the
Yes.
friendly farmer, who offered him not only the supplies he needed, but a church where he could preach a sermon that spoke of the universal love of God.
Yeah, indeed. Things did turn around for John Murray after he met Thomas Potter, but John Murray never forgot where he had come from and what he had escaped.
And that is a good lesson. And we don't always know the whole story, so we should always question and keep wondering.
Here ends our time for all ages.
Good morning. My name is Sean Jordan. I most typically get he, him pronouns. I stand before you with olive skin and a brown beard, warm smile.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to interrupt you. Is the podium mic on?
Is that better? Good morning, everybody. I thought that response was a little muted, but it's the weather. My name is Sean Jordan. I most often get he, him pronouns. I stand before you with olive skin, brown beard, warm smile, and a warmer sweater, and a burgundy shawl, which denotes my role as a chaplain within this community. As chaplains, our role is to extend the spiritual care of our community, and we define spiritual care as intentional compassion through deep listening and presence. We recognize that everyone needs care at different points in their lives, and we offer ourselves as a resource. We offer ourselves for deep listening, in a way, we offer ourselves as a resource for deep listening, and in that listening, provide a foundation for healing. We're all imperfect, and I am too. If you have any questions, please do feel free to see me or any member of the ministry team. And please know that all of our conversations are held in the strictest of confidence. And if you want to learn more, you can also look under the tab marked Heal the World on the Beacon website. One other way that we extend the spiritual care of the community is by facilitating our weekly ritual of a community candle lighting. Together, we light candles of joy, sorrow, and gratitude. And this morning, we light our first candle in celebration for Mia Morse, who this morning is completing her triathlon. Let's hear it. We light a candle of praise for those whose voices spread hope, whether it be through odd circumstance like that of John Murray, who in 1770 brought a message of hope in the form of universalism to the people of North America. We light a candle of gratitude for those who support and make up organizations like the Red Cross, the International Rescue Committee, and the United Nations Refugee Agency, and any others whose efforts seek to restore a sense of hope for those facing disaster. In that vein, we light a candle of sorrow, holding up those who are suffering the effects of an earthquake in Morocco and the collapse of a dam in Libya. We light a candle in the spirit of atonement for those observing Yom Kippur, a holy time to make amends, forgive, and reconnect with an intent to repair, change, and grow. And lastly, we light candles to celebrate and memorialize the lives of Beacon members and their loved ones who have recently passed, including Gretchen Rosenberg, Alphonse Sinati, who reached the remarkable age of 100 and is the grandfather of David Sinati and great-grandfather of John and Julia, and Isabel Arnston, a longtime Beacon member who walked this earth for an astounding 101 years. In her later years, Isabel became a part of Chris and David Gordon's family, and they remained her connection to Beacon when she moved closer to her daughters. And we invite them to come forward to light her memorial candle. While these candles eventually will go out, the light of the lives that they represent will carry on in this world. Through connection and community, they live on in the love and memory that ripples and echoes through you and everyone else they touched in their lives. It is for these things and so much more, beloved, that I invite you to consider your own joys, sorrows, and inspirations for gratitude. If you are joining virtually, take this time to light a candle on your home altar or share your reflections in the chat. And for those in the sanctuary, I invite you now to come forward for our community candle lighting and light a candle of your own.
Invite you to allow the sound of our mindfulness gong to call you into a place of gentle attentiveness. It might be described as an alert peace. Gracious God of many names, love beyond love. Here in the stillness of this moment, May we experience that radical, expansive love our spiritual ancestors believed in with all of their being. The love that they lived for and ultimately rested in. In the corners of our heart where pain and doubt or injury exist, may it be eased this day with this balm. Where resentment or ill will toward another reside, bring a release, a compassion that can heal wearied hearts. And where, beloved, the sorrow heaps into piles and we feel we might be consumed, gift us the sweetness of memory, the awareness of this love to lean into. Cast out our fears, and with this great love, gift us courage this day, born of the connections, the truth that we are not alone. For the time we are given, may this love hold us, sustain us, animate our lives, and flow freely to all whom we meet. So may it be. Amen.
This hymn, number 35, is actually a Universalist hymn. Unto thy temple, Lord, we come.
We have two readings today. They're both by well-known Universalists. The first one is by Hosea Ballou, who is regarded as one of the founders of Universalism in the US. It was written in 1805, and it's an excerpt from titled A Treatise on Atonement. The universalist, who is really so, prizes his duty as his heaven, as his peace, as his most sublime enjoyment. How then shall we be so lost, so blind, and so deceived as to wish to shun our duty and our happiness? If we really believe those things, and desire that others might be brought to see and believe the same, let us endeavor in the first place to prove to all men that such a belief is of real service in the cultivation of our morals and in regulating our behavior. And secondly, by using our abilities as God has given in cool, dispassionate reasoning with those who do not believe, contending for nothing but the principles of love in meekness and all gentleness. Never argue for the sake of will nor for mastery, and shunning every appearance of sophistry or deceit. Never suffer yourselves to be anxious about the issue of conversation, but speak the words of truth and soberness, and leave the event to be directed by the Spirit of God. Falsehood is so apt to detect itself that an argument is generally best conducted when the disputant is refuted by the consequences arising from their own statements. And if he cannot see and understand them for himself, it will do no good to see them for him. If we can see for ourselves, we do well. The second reading is from Reverend Jeffrey Campbell, who's a Universalist from the Nashua Universalist Church, who writes of his own personal experience as a Black Universalist in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and the struggle and the pain of being a Black Universalist in a denomination which was mostly white and middle class. When I was 9 years old, my mother told me I could go to any Sunday school of my choice. And I tried the Methodist and the Baptist, and the refreshments weren't there. The Congregationalists provide seconds, and the Universalists put it down and let me help myself. So when 15 years later, the Committee on Ordination asked me why I had selected that particular denomination, there was nothing to do but to tell them the truth, and they still let me in. By the time I was 12 of age, the paradox between intention and action of Universalism was shaking that little church. Self-satisfied, middle-class people that they were, they had nevertheless been attracted by a faith which preached the fatherhood of God and the universal brotherhood of man. That message had struck sufficiently deeply for them to realize they could not preach or accept that belief while excluding the only youngster of mixed parentage, in an Anglo-African sense, in the neighborhood. With each stage of my development, the paradox grew sharper. Should I take a role in this or that pageant? What would the conference say if I were to represent the church? Should I be asked to teach a class? Would it be safe to hold box socials where anyone's daughter might? I shall never forget the Committee on Fellowship which examined me for ordination. 30 minutes on my theology and 4 hours on my politics and racial attitudes. Finally, the committee voted on ordination. It did so with more travail of spirit. They wanted their church to be the kind of institution which could unite its theory with its practice. Inwardly, they knew it was not, nor within the limits of their imagination could they see it becoming such. Failure to ordain me would have been an even more flagrant confession of that same failure. So far, our readings.
Good morning, beloved. I'm Reverend Robin. My pronouns are she and her, member of the lead ministry team here, and I'm a somewhat short but elevated with my boots today white woman who is middle-aged with brown shoulder-length hair. Being a universalist means living in the tension between the world we can envision and the one we are living in, all the while navigating that gap with a fervent and unrelenting love commanding us to close it. A love big enough indeed to love the hell out of the world. From our earliest days of Christianity, the Universalists were there, declaring God as a loving parent and that eternal suffering was simply incompatible with a vision of a loving God. Our earliest known theologian, Origen, wrote in the 2nd and 3rd century, believing in free will, and he taught that he hoped all people would ultimately be reconciled to God. His beliefs also led him to pacifism, and despite his loving vision for the world, Origen was tortured by Roman authorities, dying from the torment inflicted on him in prison. After the First Council of Nicaea and with the rise of Christianity as a state religion, Universalism was declared heresy. The Universalists were tortured, some were killed, and many more sought exile and had to utilize secrecy to maintain the beliefs in small enclaves of Universalists. It wasn't until the Protestant Reformation that the Universalists widely began to discuss their beliefs and even preach, but this was not met with glowing reviews. Many Christians at the time believed in the depravity of humanity and the need for a punishing, angry God. Indeed, in the words of Jonathan Edwards, sinners in the hands of an angry God. They did not take kindly to this Universalist message. Some, like John Murray, suffered economic hardship and community exile. Here in the United States, though, they began to find a measure of safety and community in the 18th century. And by the mid-1800s, Universalists were the 8th largest denomination. Often found in rural communities and among working-class people, the Universalists were not as concerned with building up Universalist churches and institutions as they were with transforming people away from the fear of an angry God into the understanding of God as love. This vision of a loving God who saw no separation or distance between humanity made the Universalists naturally drawn to social justice and to liberal theology as a whole. The Universalists, though, they didn't place their emphasis, like other liberal theologians did, on what humans could do or couldn't do. In fact, in the Universalist view, it wasn't all on humanity. It was the immensity and infinite nature of God's love that mattered. Everyone was already saved. While the Unitarians focused on what humans could do, the Universalists emphasized what God already did and was doing. Not because of some fervent working out your salvation, but because of the expanse of this love and its force. Now, The Unitarians and Universalists were often aligned on social justice and even later on religious education, but otherwise they were pretty different. Unlike the Unitarians, the Universalists weren't wealthy. They had smaller schools like St. Lawrence and not Harvard. They didn't have the power that the Unitarians wielded politically, having 4 U.S. presidents who were Unitarians. In fact, if it weren't for the alignment for social justice and the affinity between the Universalist youth and Unitarian youth, we probably never would have become Unitarian Universalists. We were an odd couple. In the early days of both traditions here in the United States, the Unitarians used to regularly ban the Universalists from their cities. In fact, the congregation that I did my internship in, the First Church in Boston, had a very large portrait of Charles Chauncey, who ensured that all of Boston was closed to the Universalists, and they weren't allowed to have any of their revivals in Boston because it would sweep people away in emotion and lead them to reckless behavior. You didn't know how dangerous Universalism was. Now, the Universalists, of course, brought an important balance to the Unitarians, who many people used to joke only were a religion of the head up. The Universalists said that love was more than an emotion or an affection, it was a sacred devotion, and that love was the very essence of the holy. And by knowing our emotions, and actually having a discipline of trusting them as a source of wisdom, we could come to know how to live in accordance with God. The old joke between the Universalists and the Unitarians goes that the Universalists believed God was too loving to damn anyone to hell, while the Unitarians believed they were simply too good to be damned. The Universalists were the first denomination to ordain women, and the first woman they ordained was Reverend Olympia Brown. But they struggled with inclusion too, as is told in the story we heard of Reverend Jeffrey Campbell this morning, who was welcomed with discrimination in his Universalist church in Nashua and never found a pulpit as a Black Universalist minister, despite being among the best ministers in his generation. Universalists again and again found themselves in the gap between the mercy, love, and justice of a God they felt and witnessed and their own limitations to fully lean into that love. Reverend Jeffrey Campbell experienced that gap again and again, and Hosea Ballou, who we heard, warned of it. John Murray was nearly swallowed by destitution and despair. But this didn't make God's love any less real for the Universalists. Now, in part because of their mission to spread Universalism rather than build up institutions, by the time the Unitarians and Universalists merged, the Universalists didn't have nearly as much money, and they were smaller in number. Most of their ideas had been incorporated in mainline Protestantism. And so by the time we merged in 1961, it wasn't just convenient to put the name Unitarian first. It was actually what happened in the merger. The Unitarians really led and overtook a lot of the early days of Unitarian Universalism. One might rightfully ask, at this point in Unitarian Universalism, with the spiritual inclusion that we have of those among us who are atheists and agnostics, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, pagans, and more, what relevance does the theology of Universalism have today? What consequence does a teaching of salvation have for us in 2023? On Monday, I found myself in a jail cell in the 7th Precinct of New York City. I had participated in an action at the Federal Reserve to bring attention to the climate crisis and the need to end fossil fuel financing by the big banks, calling on the Federal Reserve as kind of the bank of banks to set regulations on that financing of fossil fuels and to make funding available to improve and transform our energy system. Think the New Deal, but for the climate. We were also calling on President Biden to declare a climate emergency, as he had promised to do in his campaign. Anyway,
It rained that day, poured actually, you might recall. And when you're arrested, in case you don't know, you lose your coat and you might lose sweaters, other items that you have. And so I found myself in this jail cell that was still being air conditioned because they hadn't switched from summer temperatures to fall temperatures. And there I was, soaking wet and with a vent right above my head, pumping cold air into the cell. They placed anyone who was female identified 2 by 2 to cells. And so there I was, shivering next to a stranger who turned out to be a filmmaker, born in Spain with dual citizenship, moving back here as a teenager. When one has hours to pass and no devices and you're freezing cold, you tend to talk to whomever is in the space with you. When my cellmate asked what denomination I was, because they did allow me to keep my collar, I said, "Oh, I'm a Unitarian Universalist." "I've heard of you," she said. "I'm an atheist, but I think you all are cool." "Oh, we have atheists too," I said. And then she looked a little confused. I shared our theological diversity, and I said, basically what we believe is that there's inherent worthiness and dignity in every person, and that no one is beyond transformation. No one is beyond love. Wow, I'm an atheist. That makes sense to me. Over the hours that passed, and as we started to dry off, we shared stories. And I suddenly found myself shifting. I'd gone into that cell a little tired and weary, a little despairing about what was happening. And it's strange to say that on that bench with cold air pumping above our heads, with being zip-tied and confined and hungry, that hope would be kindled in that place. But in explaining our faith and explaining Universalism to a stranger, I was reminded of something that I had forgotten, that I had stopped leaning into. That there was this greater force and power. Love as a power. Something that you can actually see. I saw it in the 149 people who were arrested. I saw it in the thousands more that marched with us and supported us, and the attorneys who waited for our release. A love that reminds me it's not all in my finite hands. That there's something bigger than my individual life that can matter and can change things. As the new Article 2 proposal that all UUs are considering this year to pass in June says, love is the power that holds us together. It's at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Or, as Reverend Olympia Brown once said, when I read of the vain discussions of the present day about the virgin birth and other old dogmas which belong to the past, I feel how great the need is still of a real interest in the religion which builds up character, teaches brotherly love, sibling love, and opens up the seeker such a world of usefulness and the beauty of holiness. Love as a devotion, as a discipline, is useful. Rational thought isn't all of who we are. It's an important piece, but it's not all of who we are. And beloved, I don't know about you, but I'm not sustained by rational thought. In the midst of crisis, I don't reason my way to hope and rising again. But a love that challenges me to remember that even my greatest enemy is not beyond transformation, or in old school language, redemption, is not beyond the transformative power of love, that is a force that gives me courage, that gives me comfort and hope, and makes me rise to the commitment of this faith, to love the hell out of the world. I'm finite and limited, And I'm pretty sure everyone here is too, right? Anyone infinite? If you figured it out, let me know. My time is limited, as is yours. My ability to see what could be is limited, as is yours. But the power to transform, that force of love, is infinite. Finally, when we were released from that jail cell, I walked into a balmy New York City day, a little envious of the outside temp. I made my way, after talking to an attorney, to the train and eventually via Hoboken to my home in West Orange. And just as I got to my door, it opened. Have you had that happen? You go home and someone's there, and before you can even put the key in, the door opens. And there was 5-year-old Ariana, who is with us through foster care, who has endured more hardship than many adults that I know. And despite the oppression and pain of neglect and the turmoil and uncertainty in the foster care system, came bounding out that door once more with joy and resilience. "Bo!" she screamed, and I had no idea what she meant. "Bo!" I just was consumed by the worry that she had socks on, and she was running into the wet yard with them. "Bo," she said, "Bo, Bo, Bo," she kept pointing. Why could I not get it? A rainbow. Not one, but 2 had come into the sky, just as the sun was setting. We all flooded into the sidewalk, everyone coming out of my house like a clown car. I have 5 kids. It just kept happening. And we just stopped and stared at this harbinger of hope. It was real. And yet we couldn't have created it. The love that the Universalists first taught wasn't a feeling or even an idea or some theological treatise and hula hooping our way out of hell. It was more powerful than that. Enough to threaten empire Christianity. Enough to undo the state. Enough to make a little, mostly white church in Nashua face their hypocrisy and racism in the early 20th century. Enough to call the denomination to ordain women 56 years before they would have the right to vote in this country. That love was visible. It was real. It was power. They didn't always trust it, and sometimes we leaned away from one another in our history. But it was always more than an affection. And you see it today. You see it in the streets when 75,000 people are marching together to call us to a better future that is still possible. You see it in the infinite ripples of a life that continues to transform generations, like the life of Gretchen Rosenberg, whom we memorialized yesterday, or Isabel. You can see it in generational healing, in the resilience of the human heart to run bounding out the door, screaming, "Bo, Bo, wake up, everyone." You can see it in the forgiveness offered beyond the mercy of a single heart, and you can see it now, right here. I can see it in you. Something bigger than any of our single lives could create alone. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center. And we, if we discern with the eyes of the soul and the intelligence and emotion as well as the rational mind, we can see it, we can touch it, we can lean into it, that unity of spirit, that transformative power, love divine. Indeed, beloved, you are. Beloved. May you trust it. Lean into it. Live in its light and share it as our collective birthright. And someday, our great return. And for that love, let the people this day say,
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Barbara Heisler. I use the pronoun she, her. I wanted to walk up really slowly because I really wanted to absorb that amazing sermon and say thank you. So we're lucky in New Jersey that we have the Murray Grove Association. Universalism came to the shores of the United States in New Jersey. Another reason to love New Jersey. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about why I have such a deep affection for the Murray Grove Retreat and Renewal Center in Lanoka Harbor, New Jersey. This serene oasis holds a special place in my heart, and in the next 3 minutes, I'll take you on a journey through the reasons why. First and foremost, Murray Grove's setting is nothing short of enchanting. Nestled among the tranquil beauty of New Jersey's Pine Barrens, the center offers a respite from the chaos of everyday life. Whether you're strolling through the peaceful woods, walking the labyrinth, or simply gazing at a starry night, Murray Grove provides the ideal backdrop for relaxation and reflection. It's a place where nature's beauty soothes the soul. The saltwater pool doesn't hurt either. What truly sets Murray Grove apart, however, is its warm and welcoming staff. From the moment you arrive, you're greeted with open arms and genuine hospitality. Their dedication to making your stay comfortable and memorable is evident in every interaction. The warm and inclusive atmosphere makes Murray Grove feel like a home away from home, even if it's your first time there. One of the unique aspects of this retreat center is the sense of community that it fosters. I had an opportunity years ago to serve as one of Murray Grove's Grovers. We were the ambassadors. I always pictured myself looking like Grover, from Sesame Street. But Grovers are not just a title. It's a sense of belonging. The bond among Grovers is truly something special, and it's a testament to the enduring connections that are formed at this magical place. And as someone who gravitates toward the Universalist side of our faith, I find Murray Grove to be the perfect setting for spiritual exploration. It's a place where I can delve into the depths of my beliefs and engage in meaningful discussions with like-minded individuals through structured workshops and programs and unstructured. The newly organized archives are wonderful for intellectual exploration, and the atmosphere of acceptance and open-mindedness there encourages spiritual growth and self-discovery. What makes my connection to Murray Grove even more special and profound is the unique opportunity I had last year to serve as its interim executive director. Being at the helm of this wonderful institution gave me a behind-the-scenes look at the dedication and hard work that go into making Murray Grove the special place that it is. It's a labor of love, driven by a commitment to nurturing the soul and fostering community. Currently, I serve on Murray Grove's Development Committee, which has given me even deeper insight into the ongoing efforts to sustain and improve this haven of tranquility. This commitment to its mission is evident in every project, every program, and every interaction with Grovers and visitors alike. So my love for Murray Grove Retreat and Renewal Center in Lanoka Harbor is deeply rooted in its breathtaking setting, its incredibly welcoming staff, the strong sense of community, my inclination toward universalism and spiritual exploration, my personal experience having been on staff and now as a continuing volunteer. This institution is not just a place. It's a heartfelt endeavor to create a sanctuary for the body and soul, to hold that love, that message of universalism. I wholeheartedly encourage you to experience the magic of Murray Grove for yourself. And today, I invite you to support the work of the Murray Grove Association through our plate donation. Thank you.
Our morning offering will now be most gratefully received.
I feel led to sit down and make this a little bit more informal. This song is written by Stephen Schwartz. A lot of the work that he's done, if you really listen to the words or the lyrics, you wonder, it's always a question. There's always like meditation. There's always some kind of affirmation. And Vicki and I, we have a special knowing that we are vessels through the energy and vibration and frequency of music, and we make beautiful magic. So right now we're going to bring to you this song from Children of Eden, and we're going to do it our way, like we always do. Spark of creation, the creation of beauty, the creation of love, the creation of whatever you know you are here to do. This line. It's these words, y'all. The spark of creation is burning bright within me. The spark of creation won't let me rest at all in jail. The speak all that were to build or uncover a thing that we can call my celebration of the spark of creation. The spark of creation, may it burn forever. The spark of creation, I am the keeper of the flame. each perfect day the same, an endless vacation. Well, that's all right if you're a kind of crustacean, but if you're born with an imagination, sooner or later the feeling gets hotter and find the fire, the spark of creation.
Wow. Thank you, Rosina. Thank you for blessing us with your presence. And thanks to all of you. A welcome to all of you. We're so happy that you're with us today and that we share our time and our light together. And I'm just so thrilled to see all of you. If you're joining us remotely or online, I'd like to take this moment to maybe put your name or something about yourself or something that touched you in this service in the chat and share with each other. If you're here in person today, I'd like to invite you to connect to each other, to maybe find a person, maybe the person you know the least in the sanctuary. Exchange a glance or a wave or a hug or a deeper conversation. Go for it. Thank you. Thank you all. It is wonderful to see all your conversations. Hello. Thank you, thank you. Let's go and continue our conversations after the service. We could talk forever. If you are new here, and this might be one of your first times, I do want to invite you to a special connecting session at 12:15 today, here upstairs in the library if you're here in person, or if you're joining us remotely, there will also be a link provided to join that welcoming session. Next, please rise as you are willing and able, and join us in singing 1021, Lean on Me.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that tomorrow, for no one can heal all of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me, lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lead. Here we go. Just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean. One more time, a verse. Just lean on me. When you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Thank you.
We close with the words of Reverend David Bumba, minister emeritus, who was raised Universalist and often spoke these words at the conclusion of a Sunday service. Would you please take hands with one another? And for those of you online, we extend our hands to you.
Beneath all of our diversity, behind all our differences, there is unity of the Spirit that makes us one.
And binds us forever together in spite of time and death and the space between the stars.
May we go from this sacred hour, grounded in that unity of spirit, healed by its love, and made whole.
And the light goes with you. Amen.
Do not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. Oh, bring your pain and sorrow and joy. There's a place for them upon the altar of life. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome here. And do not leave your cares at the door. This is a place of grace, place of losing and finding our way upon the winding road. Meeting and parting, stumbling and starting over. not leave your cares at the door. Do not leave them there when you come into this place. Be open to forgiveness and transformation. Come on in, you are welcome in. Come in and do not leave your cares at the door.